I just don't understand. I don't understand that. Well, what do you mean we're going to win? What are we going to win here exactly?
Well, I guess a victory would be that the Russians retreat.
Like, Pierce has to explain everything to him as he's going on. Like, he'll say something just utterly and bafflingly absurd, and Pierce is like, I believe what victory would be for the Ukrainians specifically would be probably the end of an invasion into their territory, and then maybe some kind of discussion of peace, an armistice, if you will. Maybe new lines would be drawn. I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't speak for them. But yeah. What are we doing here? Oh, I figured we should take a second to listen to probably, I would say, one of the most impressive geopolitical analysts of our era.
Dr. Jordan Peterson is one of the world's most fascinating and controversial intellectuals. His books sell by the boatload. His talks pack theatres across the globe. Millions watch him online. When he speaks, people listen. I interviewed him earlier today at length, and we'll air most of that conversation next week. But on the day that Putin threatened nuclear war on the West, I had to ask Jordan Peterson for his analysis on the war in Ukraine. His response was as grave as it was startling. That's the world's most famous psychologist, who began by asking for his view on Vladimir Putin as a...
I mean, he must be tired after washing his feet so much before this started. Listen to him. Jordan Peterson is probably one of the most intelligent human beings on the planet. He's one of the best-selling authors in human history, as well as one of the most important authors and speakers, as well as professors that has ever had the pleasure of being a human being on this sacred planet that we call Earth.
Man.
Well, he's a lot more like everybody else than anyone thinks. You know, the notion that he's Hitler or Stalin, that's just foolish. I don't see any evidence for that at all. I mean, first of all, Hitler and Stalin were very singular types, and there's a bit of Hitler and Stalin in everyone, so, you know, there's some truth in that. Maybe there's more in it.
Was it Young who said that? I think it was Young, yeah, who was like, there's a little Hitler and Stalin in all of us. What are you? Hey, which way, Western man? Are you a Hitler or a Stalin?
Clean up your room.
Which one are you going to choose? Yeah, I mean, you can only pick one. No, maybe both. I mean, yeah, it's the two genders. That's the two genders, Hitler and Stalin. We figured it out. There you have it. Yeah, inside you there are two dictators. there's a little bit of Hitler and Stalin in all of us.
Typical Russian leader.
A bit of Hitler in everyone? Really?
There's more than a bit.
Really?
Clean up your room.
How much Hitler is in you, Jordan? How much Hitler are you sitting on? Like, goddamn. Have you worked that out? Is there a percent? Can we know? Are you like 12% Hitler, 40% Stalin, and then what's the rest of the breakup? I like that this one is too ridiculous even for Piers Morgan, who is, again, yes, a huge tosser. He's basically just like, really? There's a little Hitler in all of us? Can you explain? Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, why would have Nazism spread the way it did? You know, people think, well, that's all top.
Oh my God. Nazism spread because deep down in every one of us lies a little baby Hitler, and because we all have a baby Hitler, it got unlocked when Daddy Hitler came along. So it was like, oh well, yeah, this is clearly. I mean, no. We don't need Goebbels. We don't need propaganda. We don't need othering. We don't need to, you know, basically vilify a certain group of people, the Jews or the LGBTQ, in order to justify and amplify people's deep-seated fear of our pre-programmed systemic racism or queerphobia or any of that kind of stuff. We just have our little baby Hitlers that need to be activated. Yes. Activate baby Hitler.
Down. It's not top down. There's a part of people that are all these people who informed on Kate Burwell.
He just said it's not top down. What are you talking about? It's bottom up? Everyone was just sitting there and like, we are prepared to be activated. We're just waiting for a Daddy Hitler to come along.
Clean up your room.
Well, didn't Goebbels say that the way to get vast numbers of people to go along with what you want to do is to terrify them?
Yeah, you can
hold
do
a grip of terror over them.
Oh yeah, but
and in a way, that's what Putin's now doing with the Russian people.
Wow. Piers Morgan actually like talking some sense into Jordan Peterson. Like, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that he's actually pushing back against this.
Where he's going back now into a position of they're all trying to get us. They want to attack us. They want to take us over. He's terrifying his people to rally support for what at the moment is a conflict he has started, which is not going the way he assumed.
Well, the most, what would you say?
So the fact that you just called him out and successfully, and now Jordan Peterson is pivoting because he's, I'm sure, realizing there's not a lot of ground to stand on here. that's where you should probably laugh him out of the room. That's where you should stop this and just be like, you know what? You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. The fact that you think that there's a little Hitler in everybody, and then actually, sorry, you think that there's a lot of Hitler in everyone, and that the regime of the Nazis did not rely heavily on propaganda, fear tactics, othering, the vilification of various marginalized communities, is very telling, to say the least, and kind of horrifying. And I would like to not speak to you or have to look at your face anymore. That's what the appropriate measure probably would have been.
Wisest commentators on totalitarian states, like Solzhenitsyn, and many psychological commentators, Jung was a good example of that.
Of course.
Made a very straightforward case that you can't have a totalitarian state unless every single person is willing to lie about everything all the time. And you can think about that as top down, because the leaders lie too, and they also enforce punishments if you don't lie. But then you can also think about it, the totalitarian spirit is replicated at every level of the society. And so in a truly totalitarian state, husbands lie to their wives and parents lie to their children. And the totalitarian state is actually the grip of the lie. And so, and people will certainly go along with that. I mean we're seeing that emerge here with cancel culture. It's like lie.
So I got a quote of Carl Jung. He published an article that included this statement. The Aryan unconscious has a greater potential than the Jewish unconscious. Though Jung said he maintained close friendship with the German Jews throughout the 1930s, he appeared to not mind working with the Nazi-established Goring Institute of Psychology, as well as serving as the president of the Nazi-dominated International General Society for Psychotherapy. The Jew, he once wrote, has never yet created a cultural form of his own, and as far as we can tell, never will. He did recant it in 1948, which interesting timing, but he then said, I have never been a Nazi sympathizer, and I have never been anti-Semitic. My friendly relations with large groups of Jewish colleagues disproves that charge. He pulled the I have a Jewish friend back in 1948. Good to know.
Yes.
Or else.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, well.
And the Russian people will be bombarded all the time with state media propaganda and will be buying into a lot of what Putin is saying.
Yeah.
How does this war end, do you think?
We're going to find out this winter. Well, I know what I would do.
What? As in, you're just thinking that when America, or I guess you're implying that when Europe kind of starts to have a lot of energy crises, that's the moment.
In his shoes.
It's so ominous. Oh, you're going to find out. All of you are. Yeah, you just wait. It's coming.
I'd wait till the first cold snap and shut off the taps.
Right.
Well, of course he's going to do that.
He's got the control over the energy.
Of course he's going to do that. He's already warned the West with his insistence that maintenance problems were necessary and the pipelines had to be shut down.
Do you think he will use a nuclear weapon?
If necessary, he'll use a tactical battlefield weapon.
Oh my God. Why are you talking to this man about these things? Why? He has no idea what he's talking about right now. He's like talking out of his ass. There is no such thing as, he'll use a tactical nuclear arm or two, I mean, a precision strike. It will not have a large casualty amount, and I'm sure the West will respond with a tactical strike of their own, and then eventually we go back, and then, it'll just be a back and forth endlessly.
Even if it starts World War III?
It won't, probably.
Why? Because we wouldn't respond?
What's in it for us?
If you let him do it and get away with it, where does that end? Then you are into a Hitler analogy.
There's a lot. You can get yourself in a situation, no problem, where there's no good outcome. We're trying to do that right now on every front we can possibly imagine. We can easily get ourselves in a situation where it's hell this way and hell that way. That's highly probable.
Well, should the Ukrainians give the Russians anything? When I was over there recently interviewing President Zelensky, what I was struck by was everybody I met in Kyiv, the capital city, were utterly resolute. Don't give them an inch of our land.
Yeah, well, I can't speak to that because I don't know what the preconditions for peace might be. But I do know that naive notions that the Russians are going to lose somehow, or that we're going to win, I just don't understand. I don't understand that. Well, what do you mean we're going to win? What are we going to win here exactly?
Well, I guess a victory would be that the Russians retreat.
Pierce has to explain everything to him as he's going on. Like, he'll say something just utterly and bafflingly absurd, and Pierce is like, I believe what victory would be for the Ukrainians specifically would be probably the end of an invasion into their territory, and then maybe some kind of discussion of peace, an armistice, if you will. Maybe new lines would be drawn. I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't speak for them. But yeah, what are we doing here?
With Ukrainian runes.
Right.
Well,
With large
okay,
parts of
fine.
it.
That's a hell of a victory. Like, I think Putin could manage that, because I think he could tell his people.
Okay, fine. That's a hell of a victory. Holy shit, Jordan. Damn.
And I think they might buy it. It's like, we accomplished our objective. We devastated Ukraine and we kept it out of the hands of the West. And that's not great. It's not what we had hoped for, but it's better than the alternative. And I think they would buy that. And I think when Putin went into Ukraine, I thought a bunch of things, which I made a YouTube video about that. People criticized like mad. I thought, okay, well, what's happening here? Oh, I see. His end game for failure is that Ukraine is left in a smoking ruin. Oh, that's a victory. So then he can lose with impunity.
Right.
So how can we win? We can't win against Vladimir Putin anyways, because you cannot win against someone you cannot say no to. Period. And we can't say no to Putin because we sold our soul for his oil and gas.
Okay, so he keeps saying we. I don't know who he's referring to. If he's referring to Canada, no, we don't get our energy from Russia. If he's referring to the United States, they also don't get their energy from Russia. Who are you talking about? If you're talking about Europe, which I guess is the royal we in this case, yes, there's a handful of European nations that are going to have a much harder time from an energy perspective because of this. Like Germany straight up said, okay, fine, we'll stop using Russian fuel as long as this conflict is going on. I mean, you could criticize that decision, but the fact that you're acting as if Putin has complete and utter control, the opposite has happened. There has been a repudiation of him and his administration. Again, what are you talking about?
And we did that to elevate our moral stature in relationship to saving the planet. And so here we are, facing a very dire winter, hoisted on the petard of our own foolishness and moral presumption. We're saving the planet. We'll see. I don't think so. It doesn't look like it to me. And
okay, so I'm having trouble kind of trying to figure out where he's coming from. It's like a quasi combination of like right-wing rhetoric and pro-Putin apologia, or maybe just fear the man, for he is great and powerful, and so should I be, or something. I don't know. Jordan, this is weird even for you. In terms of everyone's personal victories in this, I would say the U.S. is getting everything it wants. The military-industrial complex of the U.S. gets to print cash. They get to weaken Russia's military capabilities, of which they have without having to sacrifice American lives. So from their perspective, it has been great. NATO and NATO expansion has increased dramatically under this. Countries that never would have wanted to join NATO previously, and NATO was on life support because other countries don't pay their fair share, suddenly has like new lifeblood injected into it. So absolute and utter failure from that perspective, if you are a pro-Putin apologist and thinks this is like something good for Putin. For Ukraine, I would say nothing short of getting their country back would be a victory for them, and that's what they're fighting and dying for. That's pretty much what's going on there. I don't understand why he's trying to make this about him and his weird climate change denial arc that he's going on right now. Like, oh, you'll find out when the taps are turned off. It's going to be a cold winter, and we're trying to save the planet from climate change. Not that I believe that's real.
this is the most catastrophic issue here. Assuming that we're facing an environmental crisis of planetary proportions, which is not something I buy, by the way. Assuming we
Weird flex. Weird ass flex.
are, well, then I would imagine that you would put in place measures that would ameliorate that problem instead of exacerbating it. But all the measures you're putting in place are actually making the environmental problem worse. So how is that even vaguely acceptable? And I look at that and I think, oh, I see. It's just like George Orwell said about middle-class socialists 50 years ago. It's not that you love the planet, it's that you hate humanity. So, well, have at her, boys and girls, and we'll see what happens this winter. And it's very terrifying to me.
It is.
I especially here.
Is he auditioning to be a Kremlin spokesman? Like, honestly, like, trust me, I don't buy into the whole liberal fucking, every Russian member of the administration is basically a Hitler kind of shit. Every single like time Putin speaks, I hear the voice of fucking, Mussolini or something like that. But like, if you had an actual like general or a foreign minister come onto the show, I imagine this is how this would sound. Like really weird, vague threats, like, well, no one can say no to Putin because he controls all the energy in the world. And also, if you do, you will lose. We will have total victory. So there's nothing you can do about it. Winter is coming. Wait until winter. Fuck around and find out.
Because your energy prices have gone way out of control, and that's going to hurt a lot of poor people, and certainly around the world as well. The World Bank already estimated that we've put 350 million people into what they call food insecurity. 350 million. That's 3 times as many as the communists managed to kill. Maybe we can manage that in a winter. But the planet has too many people on it anyway, so, that's just poor people.
I don't think you would have been able to get a more outrageous interview out of a lot of other far right figures. This one is just wild. So I don't think he's doing the eugenics thing here, even though it does sound like he is. I think what he's doing here is he's just trying to like bring up other people's arguments and just facetiously talk about them. That's he's just running through the Rolodex of them. But that is an utterly bizarre statement to have made. I want to replay that again. I don't think I've heard him say anything this zany in a long time.
Times as many as the communists managed to kill. Maybe we can manage that.
So by the way, the 350 million people being put into food insecurity, that is like, okay, you understand that has to do with the current systems in place that we have, aka you should probably be criticizing capitalism. Throwing that into the big black book of communism claim that, communism killed millions and millions of people, so maybe blah, blah, blah.
But in a winter. But the planet has too many people on it anyway, so, that's just poor people.
Yeah, so I think what he's facetiously doing there in the weirdest way possible is trying to act as if this is what's going to happen. That was the wildest Jordan Peterson interview I've seen in a long time. Anytime. Is there any credibility to communism killing that many number of people? No, there's a lot of, like, I'm not going to get into it now, but go on YouTube, you'll find a plethora of, or reddit.com/r/breadtube, a plethora of debunking videos on that topic and the big black book of communism.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earthhuman, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojak, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.